Hi, everyone. Sue Hyben here with the Full Circle Business. Excited to come back with another episode of Women for Women in Business. And today, my guest is Cindy Schroeder from Bright Bookkeeping. And I'm going to let her tell you what she does and why she does it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me be here. It's very exciting. Like you mentioned, my name's Cindy Schroeder. My company is Bright Bookkeeping. We're located in Winter Garden, Florida, and I'm an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro advisor. So we primarily help small businesses, specifically residential house painters, with all of their bookkeeping using QuickBooks Online. And the reason that I love doing what I do is just because I know that there's a certain amount of maybe shame or, just not enough knowledge a lot of business owners have about how accounting works and how, the best way to set up their bookkeeping. So we like to be able to take all of that mystery away and help you with your QuickBooks headaches and make everything super easy. We can either help train you to do the work, or we can do it for you and then just help you with how to read financials and how to make use that information to make good business decisions.
Yes, and that takes me into how Cindy and I met and were connected. And she was a referral from a good friend of mine who's a long-term contractor and turned coach as well. And I flubbed something in my QuickBooks Online from my consulting and said, I need help. So Cindy and we did a one-on-one session. I think it was maybe 30 minutes and kind of took me through and showed me around a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit more than I was aware of what was capable back there. And then did a couple corrections. And now, every year as I need to wind the year down, she'll check back in and make sure all my I's are dotted and all my T's are crossed. So it is true. Most business owners, and it's interesting, since my daughter was kind of, I guess, maybe middle school age, and having gone into the family painting business myself with no business background, I've told everyone I know that has kids to encourage them to take a basic business class and a basic finance class. Even if you're not going to college, like go to community college and just take those 2 101 classes, because you really don't. I'm good with numbers. I am not an accountant. So it's a whole other can of worms to really know that side of the business, as well as you do. And so I always encourage people, actually, as well with my coaching on the trade side, if your first true hire should be a bookkeeper. Maybe it's part-time, maybe it's full-time, maybe eventually you bring it in-house, but that first hire should be a bookkeeper and somebody to kind of keep you on track and just make sure, like I said, everything is itemized correctly and, logged properly so that at the end of the year, you're not scrambling to cleaning everything up for your taxes and, to make sure that it's all taken care of properly. So,
and that's what we find a lot is that, obviously when you're starting out, you're trying to bootstrap and save money. So it's, I know I need to keep track of my finances. I think I'm just going to figure it out myself by watching Google video or YouTube videos but it's really a great idea to check in with a bookkeeper, who has experience, to be able to, like you said, just kind of make sure everything's on the right track. And a lot of times what we find, our very first step is we do what we call a Bright review, where we take a look at your books and then we'll provide you with a report that tells you everything that we found. Could be, things that are coded to the wrong place, or just maybe some better training to make things more efficient. And just that little piece can really change, how much your taxes you have, or how much expenses you have to deduct for your taxes. And we've been able to save a lot of clients a lot of money just by doing that review.
Right. And so then tell us what your ideal client looks like and what a good fit is for you. Like I think I've mentioned so far in every episode of Women for Women, having a good working relationship is really important to me. And I think it's kind of going to be the wave of the future, is that relationships really do matter. It's one of the other reasons I like working with other small businesses, because a lot of times you're still dealing with the owner, or you have, a right-hand person that's really integral to their team, and you're not dealing with some, big corporation where you're just another number. So what's ideal look like for you and a good fit for coming to work with you potentially?
Yeah, so our ideal client is actually somebody who's just, really open-minded to learning. You don't, like I said, some people are like, I'm almost afraid to ask questions or to show you what your financials are. It's a very sensitive situation, right?
Right.
We have a no judgment zone. We've seen it all, and we're just, taking that first step by calling us to help get things in order is courageous, and we try to make it as comfortable and as painless as possible. So I think that that's the most important thing, is just somebody who's open-minded. And we do use a lot of tech. And so we bring a lot of people who maybe are still using QuickBooks Desktop or doing a lot of things using paper. We add a lot of apps into your tech stack and make things a lot more automated for you. So you have to be a little bit open-minded for that as well.
Right.
Like I mentioned, our primary client is, we're helping residential house painters, but we do help all different services. And if I can't help you, or it's not an industry that I know, I also have a bookkeeping community called Bookkeeping Buds, which is made up of individual bookkeepers across the country, and they all have their own expertise as well. So I have a wide variety of people I could refer you to.
Yeah. And I think what I've seen and learned and coached and consulted with over the years too is that if you don't know your numbers, numbers don't lie if they're accurate. So you really, if
Yeah,
you're looking to grow or scale or, to build your business, it all starts with your numbers, and you really have to have them dialed in and know what they are, and having somebody on your team that can help explain that to you. And, why is this number important or more important than, another number? Everybody thinks, that top line number is the one that matters. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what's left in your bank account at the end of the year is what
right.
kind of really matters.
Right.
So
And it's
yeah,
really about, I mean, a lot of people run their business just about what numbers in their checking account. And
right,
that's not the best way to do it. So you want to have the right profit and loss statement with the right information, and also be able to understand what it is you're actually looking at.
right,
And one other thing I wanted to mention too is, just because there may be some confusion as to, I have an accountant that does my taxes, why do I need a bookkeeper?
right,
So a lot of accountants or CPAs, they will just, at the end of the year, when you give them your financials, they're going to just take that information and create your tax return. What a bookkeeper does, especially I'm an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro advisor, we actually will look at your financials and kind of dig deeper as to, do the numbers actually make sense?
right,
Hopefully your CPA who actually does the taxes, if something was completely off, they
right,
would catch it. But that's not what you're paying them for. You're not paying them to audit your financials to make sure they make sense. You're paying them to do the tax return. So that's why a lot of people, when they come to us, they're like, well, how come my tax accountant never told me, that all of these numbers that are on the balance sheet shouldn't be, they should be on your profit and loss as an expense. And it's like, well, that's not what you're paying them for.
right.
So it's a little what the difference is between the two,
Thank you for
and
that.
why you
Definitely
should have
helpful.
both.
Yeah, and we're lucky in the painting business. We work with an accounting firm that's a little bit on the larger side. So they have bookkeepers in-house, which is why I don't really, when I ran into my issue, I had to call you because they're
Yeah,
behind the scenes making sure everything is kind of cleaned up before we get to tax time. So yeah, that was a good clarification, because a lot of times people don't understand, like, yeah, if I got an accountant, what's the difference? So thank you for that tip.
yeah,
And anything else that you see come up, we always kind of share. I do a series called 3 and 3, which is
yeah.
3 tips. So it could be 1, 2, or 3 things that you want to share that you see kind
Yeah.
of happen a lot. Some advice you would give to, a contractor out there who may not be quite where they need to be with regards to their bookkeeping yet.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And they're not necessarily QuickBooks specific tips, but as I mentioned, we are specifically a QuickBooks Online
Right.
bookkeeping service. But I think some of the biggest ones are to make sure that as you're running your business, keep your business and personal expenses separate. So I know sometimes that gets kind of muddy, and
Right.
the whole idea behind that is, if you paid to incorporate your business, either an LLC or an S corp or whatever, and you're still putting personal expenses into your business, it kind of negates the whole idea of having it ever be incorporated. So you really want to make sure that you have a separate checking account for business and personal, and then, don't use your business credit card for personal expenses or vice versa. I think that's probably one of our biggest tips that I have. And if you are handling your bookkeeping yourself, Really get on the habit of updating your bank feeds regularly. So either that's once a week or once a month. And then you also want to reconcile all of your bank and credit card accounts, as well as specifically for painters, if you have revolving accounts like your Sherwin-Williams account or other paint accounts that you want to reconcile those monthly to catch any mistakes or any duplications that may be throwing off your numbers as well.
Yeah, I
And
teased the
then
first year. Oh, go ahead. You got one more.
go ahead.
She's
No, go
going for
ahead.
three.
Yeah, I have three.
Okay.
And then my last one is just kind of like what you mentioned. Even if you're doing your bookkeeping yourself, be sure to have somebody look at your QuickBooks file at the end of the year before you bring it to your tax accountant, just to have that second set of eyes on there, because there's things that we'll look at that maybe you don't even know, or don't recognize easily from looking at the report. So it really could save you money in the long run. We always say you had a dream when you started your business, and your dream wasn't bookkeeping, but that was ours. So leave it with us.
There you go. Yeah. And that's the thing I've learned too, is as a busy business owner, at a certain point, you can't do everything yourself anymore. Most people, and I have a blog about this, like the natural evolution of the business, you do start out doing it all yourself, and it's not really, a lot yet. So you can manage it in a somewhat, limited amount of time, where, then you get to that point where you're working, 50, 60 hours a week and your team gets bigger. There comes a point where to be successful and to continue growing, you really do need to outsource. But the goal is to make sure, what should I outsource, and make sure you find the right fit, like I said, for you and your business, so that you're working with somebody that you know and that you trust, and that's going to be on top of things for you. And I think some industry knowledge is helpful, with regards to, so you said you kind of specialize with residential painting. I do too, but I've also learned that most trades, the foundation is very similar. So to work with a landscaper is not a huge stretch, or like,
Right.
what I've learned
Yeah,
over the
like I have
last
a
year.
friend that does all roofers, like,
Right.
because there's very specific things doing roofing or home construction, it's
Right.
very specific. So yeah, it does help to have someone who's
Understands your
experienced in your
industry. Yeah.
understands the problems that come up even before you have them.
Right. Yeah. So my one story of my first year in the painting business, I took over for a long-term office manager who decided to retire. And she taught me a lot, but nobody told me when the credit card statement came in, you had to itemize the whole thing. And this was way before
Oh,
we were still in Quick Ins on a desktop on a Mac. So this was
wow.
long
Okay.
before the QuickBooks Online option was available for us. So we get to the end of the year and I send everything to the accountant, and he sends it back and he's like, yeah, I need this itemized. So thankfully we only had one credit card back then, but I literally had to go back through 12 months worth of credit card statements and re-itemize all of those months to break it out into the right categories. So being on top of
I've seen
everything,
that one before.
yeah, being on top of it on a monthly basis will definitely save you a lot of time and a lot of headache at the end of the year, when you're in the crunch to gather everything together to give to your accountant to get your taxes done in a
Right.
timely fashion.
Absolutely.
So definitely a lesson learned very early on, thankfully. But like I said, now every month, I'm in there and our bookkeeper's in there, and we're going through and making sure that everything, is closed out before, probably by the end of the middle of the month, we're closing out last month, and then I don't have to
Okay.
worry about it come December when it's time to
Yeah,
pull
right.
reports. So
And I completely understand that it's so easy to be like, oh, I'll get to it, and then a month goes by, and then 2 months goes by, and then it's like, oh, now it's so much, I don't even want to do it, and so
yeah.
it's very easy to put off.
Or you don't remember, or in our case now, we have a couple, people in the management team that have business credit cards, and sometimes they make
Oh,
purchases
right.
from a company I've never heard of, and I'm like, all right, I need to know what this was for so I can make sure it gets categorized properly, whether it's materials or if it was, something customer related. I need to know where it needs to go, if it was equipment, if it went in the shop, if it came in the office. So yeah, I think the more consistent you are, which is one of my big things too when I work with people, is consistency is really the key to
Mhm.
success. It's that little secret
Sure.
nobody tells you, is like those things, like you said, you don't feel like doing, but if you do them consistently and kind of build that routine, it makes it a lot easier to stay on top of everything and to not have this huge pile of work waiting for you at the end of the year when you're not in the mood to sit and have to go through, like you said, and clean all that up in order to hand it over to the accountant in a timely fashion. So,
Right.
so if someone is in need of a bookkeeper or wants to do the review or wants to learn more, what's the best way to find you and reach you?
Yeah, probably the best way is to go to our website, which is just brightbookkeeping.com. There's 2 O's, 2 K's, and 2 E's in bookkeeping. Or I'm also on Twitter at Bright Books. So those are probably the 2 easiest ways to reach out to us.
Okay. And then through your website, they can either do a little request or send you an email or whatever it may be.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
contact form on there, and we can get started.
Okay. So, well, it was actually, this is the first time Cindy and I have seen each other in person, even though we've been working together for a while, which is one of the other things with, I think I call them kind of like the silver lining of the pandemic is the world has opened up a lot more with regards to networking across the nation, so you're in
Yeah,
Florida, I'm
absolutely.
in PA, but it's not a big deal and you're a good fit for me. So now we're able to connect and work together, thankfully, because
Yeah,
of things
I
like
really
Zoom
appreciate
and, people being more open to not necessarily working with someone local, but working with, like I said, another small business that's a good fit, you know.
right.
So, um, and like I said, she has saved me a couple of times. I actually have some reconciling to do myself for June, which I will now do because I've had a conversation with you today. So it's going to be top of my mind to get it in and get it caught up and make sure I'm
Good push.
ready to go for, before July comes rolling in. So brightbookkeeping.com, and you can contact her there if you're interested, and or hop over to Twitter. And you said it was
Bright
Bright Book
Books.
at Twitter.
Books with
Okay.
an S at the end.
All
Yep.
right. All right. Well, thanks again for joining me and sharing, like I said, a lot of helpful information, I think, and making people realize that the numbers don't have to be as scary as you think they are. Once you kind of get
Exactly.
a hold on them, it makes it a lot easier to run a successful business and kind of a smooth business, and get to those goals that you've set out for yourself. So until next time, like I said, Women for Women, we'll have hopefully one episode per month for the foreseeable future, and share my resources with you so you can help build and grow your business the way I've been able to build and grow my business with great referrals and great partners. So see you in the next episode.
Great. Thanks so much.